وخير الخلق قدوتنا تعال وزر وشاركنا وقم بالخير سابقنا لقانا في ابن تيمية وخير الخلق قدوتنا لقانا في ابن تيمية وخير الخلق قدوتنا لقانا في ابن تيمية وخير الخلق قدوتنا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على عبده ورسوله وخليله وصفوته من خلقه نبينا وإمامنا وسيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن سلك سبيله واهتدى بهداه إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد. We're on the nullifiers of wudu, and the author rahimahullah ta'ala said وَالنَّوَاقِدُ فِي الطَّهَارَةِ الصُّغْرَى ثَمَانِيَةٌ. There's 8 nullifiers of wudu. The first one is al-khariju min as-sabilayn, anything exiting from the 2 private parts. Al-khariju min as-sabilayni wal-fahishu min ghayrihima. What exits from other than the 2 private parts, that's repulsive. The third one is وَزَوَالُ الْعَقْلِ بِغَيْرِ نَوْمٍ يَسِيرٍ جَالِسًا أَوْ قَائِمًا. Sleep is like loss of consciousness, except light sleep while one is sitting and standing, and we explained that. The fourth and fifth one is وَمَسُّ الْفَرْجِ وَالْمَرْأَةِ لِشَهْوَةٍ, touching the private parts and a woman with desire. The sixth one is وَأَكْلُ لَحْمِ الْإِبِلِ, eating the meat of a camel. The seventh one, it's the one we finished in our last class, is apostasy, وَالرِّدَّةِ. We finished talking about whether ridda nullifies wudu or not. And I said we completed the list of wudu nullifiers that the author detailed. Ridda is the last nullifier that the author mentions. For so many halaqat, I've been reviewing the matan in the beginning. And I do that as a review, and so we can memorize it. So much to the point that some parents sent me videos of their children recited portions of that matan. I said over and over that the author said there's 8 nullifiers of wudu. But looking at your matan now, when he went to list them, he only detailed 7. There's no 8th nullifier of wudu in that booklet. The 7th nullifier, ridda, is the last one he mentions. Then he goes on to the next section. The Hanabila usually list 8 nullifiers. The one the author omitted was wudu from washing a dead person. Wudu from washing the deceased. How do we know that's the one he skipped? Because there's other ones that other ulama mentioned. Because the majority of the Hanabila, when you see their matan or their books of fiqh, go by those 8 nullifiers. But why did he omit it? It's possible that he forgot. He's human, and humans make mistakes. But that's the weaker of the 2 responses. A stronger, more correct reason that I believe is most likely because he didn't consider it a nullifier. Because the Hanbali madhab itself is split on this matter. Some consider it a nullifier of wudu, some say it's not a nullifier of wudu, as we'll see inshallah. It's possible to infer from him saying there's 8 nullifiers of wudu and only listing 7 that he skipped washing the deceased due to him not agreeing that it's a nullifier of wudu. He left it out when detail. He mentioned the 8 to show you that's what the Hanabila mentioned. But he left out the one that he left out detail in the one that he disagrees with. So now let's take the nullifier that he skipped. Wudu from washing the deceased. Is washing the deceased a nullifier of wudu? Before we begin, let me point out two things. This mas'ala pertains to wudu from washing the deceased. Some ulama mentioned that washing the deceased requires a ghusl, a full ghusl. That's not in this section. Here we're talking about the nullifiers of wudu. Whether washing the deceased requires a full ghusl or not is something elsewhere in the sections of the books of fiqh. The second matter to keep in mind is that this dispute pertains to the one physically washing and touching the dead person, meaning someone standing and pouring water, didn't actually touch the dead person. That's not part of this mas'ala. His wudu is not nullified. That's not even a question. There's two opinions on this matter. The first opinion is that it's not a nullifier. That's the correct opinion, and the opinion of the majority of the ulama. Among them is the Hanafiya, Shafi'iyya, Maliki, and one of two opinions of the Hanabila, and it's the opinion that Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala chose. The Shafi'iyya went along with this opinion, but considered it sunnah, mustahab, meaning they didn't say it's a nullifier, but they said it's better to make wudu. The first proof, and the decisive proof on this matter, is that there's no proof to indicate, no authentic proof to indicate it's a nullifier. And when there's no proof to indicate it's a nullifier, we mentioned the rationale we've mentioned many times, that a person's wudu is intact, and it's proven by yaqeen, and it doesn't get nullified except with clear, authentic proof, and there is no proof on this matter. Imposing something like wudu on an issue without clear proof is no different than making a haram a halal and a halal a haram. The second proof is they said the deceased Muslim is pure. The person washing him is touching someone who's pure. So it's not a nullifier of wudu. Even if he was covered in najasa head to toe, it's still not a nullifier of wudu. If the one washing him gets najasa on him, all he's required to do is wash the najasa off. If you're not required to make wudu from touching najasat or even the carcass of an animal, it's more essential that touching the deceased Muslim is not a nullifier of wudu. The second opinion is that it's a nullifier of wudu. If someone washes a dead person, they have to go perform wudu. And that's the opinion of Imam Ahmad and Ishaq ibn Rahawayh and An-Nakhai. And this is among what we refer to as mufradat al-madhhab al-hanbali. Mufradat al-madhhab al-hanbali. I mentioned this before. When we spoke about eating the meat of a camel, wa aklu lahm al-ibli, I mentioned this matter. It means, when you say mufradat al-madhhab al-hanbali, it means the opinion of that madhhab differs from the opinion of the official opinions of the other three madhahib. Eating the meat of a camel, in considering that a nullifier of wudu, is the opinion of the Hanabila, and it goes against all the other three madhahib. We said, when we mentioned that the Hanabila were correct. It's a nullifier of wudu, and we proved it. Now, requiring wudu after washing the deceased is the opinion of the Hanabila, and it goes against all the other three madhahib. But we said here, this is the weak opinion, because we go by proof. What's the proof for the Hanabila and the ulama who went along with them, that it's a nullifier of wudu? First of all, there's an athar by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma that's quoted in this matter, indicating that one should make wudu after washing a dead person, but it's weak. And also, second of all, there's a hadith related by Aisha and Ali ibn Abi Talib and Abu Sa'id al-Khudri and Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman and al-Mughira bin Shu'bah pertaining to this matter, and they're all weak. One of those ahadith that's widely used is in Sunan al-Tirmidhi and Abu Dawood and Ibn Majah, and in Musnad Ahmad, it's on the authority of Abu Hurairah radiallahu anh, that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, min ghuslihi al-ghusl wa min hamlihi al-wudu. Or, man ghassala al-mayyita falyaghtasil wa man hamalahu falyatawadda. One who washes the dead person should do ghusl, and the one who carries him needs to perform wudu. The ulama of hadith dispute whether that's actually a hadith, meaning the wording of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or an athar of Abu Hurairah. Did Abu Hurairah say it? Al-Bukhari, and Ali ibn al-Madini, and Imam Ahmad, and Abu Hatim, and Al-Bayhaqi, and Ibn al-Mundir said, it's not a hadith attributable to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And some of those ulama clearly said there's no authentic hadith on this matter. Another proof they use is an athar by Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, that's in Musannaf Ibn Abi Shaybah, where he was asked about making ghusl, taking a full bath after washing a deceased person. Do you have to do that? He said, no, you just make wudu. And that can be responded to in many ways. Number one, he could have meant the linguistic wudu. The wudu of washing, meaning washing the hands. Because one who washes a dead person may touch najasa, so he needs to wash his hand. So it's possible he meant the literal linguistic wudu of washing the hands. It's also possible he meant one who wasn't on wudu needs to make wudu to perform the janazah, the salah of the janazah. Also, a third way to respond to it is that that's an athar. It's not a hadith. It's a statement of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. Why all these possibilities and scenarios to the statement of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma? Because it's an athar. It's an athar on a matter where there's no hadith to back that up. There's no statement of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam or ijma' to back that up. Another proof they use, they said the person washing the dead person may touch his private parts, so he needs to make wudu. They said it's like sleep. Sleep is not a nullifier in of itself, but because of the possibility of discharge of wind. They said likewise here, washing the deceased is not a nullifier in of itself, but due to the possibility of touching the dead person's private parts. And that can be responded to in many ways as well. Number one, it's not permitted to touch the private parts of the deceased except through a barrier. So that shouldn't happen. We studied the issues of touching private parts, and we said, even if one touches his own private parts through a barrier, it's not the correct opinion on that. It's disputed, but the correct opinion is that it's not a nullifier. Touching the private part of a dead person is not common or eminent. If it happens, it's exceptional and rare. And exceptional matters like that shouldn't be a reason to require wudu without clear, solid proof. Also, a response. Assuming you accept the opinion that touching someone else's private part nullifies wudu. We studied that and we said that's the weaker of the opinions. The one washing the deceased can't be compared to one sleeping. The one washing is fully awake and aware and conscious. He's fully aware if he in fact touches the private parts of someone, unlike someone who's sleeping, who's unaware and may discharge wind. So you can't compare the two. On top of that, if you've been following our classes closely, you can counter that argument with what we studied pertaining to matters we studied under touching the private parts. 2 masail that we took recently. You can apply them here. From what we learned, let's assume the one washing the dead person accidentally or ignorantly touches the private parts of the dead person. He shouldn't without a barrier, but let's assume for fiqh purposes it happened. Touching the private part of someone else is a mas'ala we studied. And we said it's different than one touching his own private parts, and we mentioned the rajih with proof that it's not a nullifier. So that shoots down that argument. Also, what we studied, we learned that touching the private parts over clothes or over a barrier doesn't nullify wudu of the one touching his own private parts, let alone someone else. Now, another proof that they used, which is the sixth proof that washing the deceased nullifies wudu, is that they may have used a rule adopted by the Hanabila that everything requiring ghusl requires wudu. According to those who say one must do ghusl from washing the deceased, then by that rule, everything requiring a ghusl requires wudu, so that means it requires wudu. The mas'ala, like I said, of ghusl from washing a deceased is not under this section. Inshallah, we'll address it in its proper section. The rajih on this mas'ala is that washing a dead person is not a nullifier of wudu because there's no authentic proof to indicate that, authentic, clear proof to indicate that. For something to be a nullifier, we stated many times, you need authentic proof or an ijma'. With that, we concluded the nullifiers that the author mentioned directly or hinted to when he said 8 but only listed 7. And that is what the Hanabila, those 8 are generally what the Hanabila adopt as nullifiers of wudu. But because we're using this book as an outline to teach the Hanbali madhab and the other madhahib, we're going to discuss other nullifiers of wudu that other ulama and madhahib mentioned, inshallah. The 9th nullifier is laughing in salah. Al-qahqaha fi salah. And this was mentioned by the Ahnaf. And just like I started the previous mas'ala with 2 notes, I'll mention 2 notes before I begin discussing this mas'ala. The first one is, this is not about laughing nullifying salah. So don't confuse the two. That's discussed elsewhere. And we're studying in a structured way. Nor is this about laughing outside of salah. None of the ulama consider laughing outside of salah a nullifier of wudu. And actually, let me add a third one. This mas'ala is also not about smiling in salah, meaning smiling without noise of laughter. This mas'ala is about qahqaha, laughing with a sound. The word defines itself, qahqaha. Does laughing in salah nullify wudu? Meaning, if he laughs with a sound in salah, does he have to break his salah, go make wudu and start all over again? The majority of the ulama say that it does not nullify wudu. And their proof is just like the earlier mas'ala. The first proof of theirs, there's no proof. And we stated many times, in order for something to be a nullifier, there has to be clear, authentic proof or ijma'. Additional proof is what's in Musannaf ibn Abi Shaybah, that Jabir radiallahu anh said, if one laughs in salah, he repeats the salah, not the wudu. Third proof is if laughing outside of salah is not a nullifier. We all agree on that. How could it be a nullifier only in salah? If it's a nullifier in salah, it should be a nullifier outside of salah as well. A fourth proof is that talking in salah is prohibited and nullifies salah. But it doesn't nullify wudu. If one purposely speaks in salah, his salah is nullified, not the wudu. Laughing in salah is of the same nature, so it shouldn't nullify wudu as well. The second opinion is what the Ahnaf said, that it nullifies wudu, and Al-Hasan al-Basri and Ibrahim al-Nakha'i, Sufyan al-Thawri also adopted that. They used a weak hadith in Sunan al-Daraqutni that the Sahaba were supposedly in salah and a blind man came in and fell in some hole, and the Sahaba supposedly began to laugh during salah, so the Messenger ﷺ said, repeat the salah, redo the wudu and repeat the salah. It's weak. There's other ahadith that clearly order one who laughs in salah to redo the wudu in the salah. Every single one of them is weak, and Al-Bayhaqi pointed out to their weakness. So the correct opinion is that laughing in salah is not a nullifier of wudu. The ulama go back and forth on this issue to the extent of discussing whether there was a hole in the masjid that somebody could have fell in. But the bottom line is that nullifiers are known by authentic proof and ijma'. And there's no authentic proof that laughing in salah nullifies wudu. All the clear proofs on it are weak. And now we said it's our opinion and the opinion of the majority of the ulama and tabi'een that laughing in salah does not nullify wudu. He also attributed that to Ibn Mas'ud and Jabir and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari. We'll stop here and continue in the next class, inshallah. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم.